Yeah, like he hasn't gotten to that point where they're just like, yo, we don't care about you at all. Like he's still LeBron at the end of the day. Like, and
Yeah.
I'll say this. I don't want to say too many bad things about LeBron because I don't want him to pop up 15 years from now with a lot to say to me about me. Similar to what
Yeah.
similar to what many people may have been seeing from the past week with Kwame Brown, where he's kept his silence for 20 years and he's finally decided to break his silence in what he gives the term giving out mama's cooking. He's
So,
been
Mama's recipe. Mama's.
Jesus.
Yeah. So, shouts out to Kwame Brown. So for the listeners who are not kind of familiar, just a quick recap. So Matt Barnes and Steve Jackson, they have this podcast called All the Smoke. I think it's through Showtime. But anyway, they had like Gilbert Arenas, and they recently was kind of like clowning Kwame Brown, basically saying he was a scrub, he was a bust in the NBA, not all that good. And but this wasn't the first time that Kwame was getting trashed on by like people from sports media.
About 20 years worth of it.
Yeah, way back then, Stephen A was trashing on him. And then now that it was kind of like some of a hot topic, now you got people who never played sports at a professional level, like Charlemagne the God and DJ Envy at the Breakfast Club making their comments. So, the straw that broke the camel's back was what happened recently, and Kwame is now coming out defending himself, and he's kind of like letting it all out. He's some people think he's exposing people, et cetera, et cetera. He brought up the situation with Charlemagne and his controversial case, and he was telling stories about how Gilbert and Steve Jackson and Matt Barnes, how they're not tough, and whether
I mean,
the consensus though is a lot of people are siding with Kwame Brown on this. And a lot of people are happy that he's kind of coming out and all that. And so as far as like the personal stuff, I don't have no say in the matter because obviously I wasn't in those rooms. I don't know these people personally. Right. So I can't be like, oh, Kwame's telling the truth about that. But what I will say from a person on the outside that is a fan of basketball is like, hey, I agree with Kwame standing up and trying to defend himself from 20 years of slander. You know what I mean? I feel like that why should he sit there and be the was it the butt or the punching bag? Let's just say that of all these jokes when, he's done something that the majority of people in America, let alone the world, can't do, which is play in the NBA for over a decade, right? And not only that, at 18 years old, be able to buy his mother a nice home, be able to make programs for less fortunate kids, he may not be remembered as Michael Jordan, but but at least he'll be remembered within his community and within his family. This guy made millions, and apparently he managed his millions well because he's not hurt for money, according to him or whatever. So I feel like I support the fact that he's standing up for himself. Yeah, his NBA career might have not been the greatest, but far as like just a human being level, I don't think that he's wrong for defending himself.
Yeah, I mean, I agree there where it's like I'm happy that he's finally standing up for himself. Like he's been quiet for so many years. I think the biggest issue I think was, I mean, he was drafted by Michael Jordan, and I think because of that put so much pressure on him. Yeah. Which I mean, at the end of the day, some players are not stars, some players are role players, and I think when you get drafted by who's arguably the greatest player to ever play the game, it puts a certain look, it puts a certain smudge on, like, there's a certain expectation, I'll say. The fact that he didn't live up to that expectation, it kind of hurt him to some extent, but I think the amount of slander that's happened over the years, even from the Breakfast Club to Gilbert Arenas to Stephen A. Smith, even Roy Hibbert, I was watching something just the other day where he was talking about Roy Hibbert, where he's like, "Yo, X, Y, and Z, like I'll meet up with you. We can really fight, whatever the case may be. Like you, all this other. Long story short, I don't want to go on a tangent, but in so many words, he's just expressed his frustrations from Skip Bayless to Stephen A. Smith to Roy Hibbert to even Gilbert Arenas actually copped some pleas, honestly, because I mean, at the end of the day, this it's not like he's a has been that gained 70 or 80 pounds. Like
Right.
he's still someone that I think he was playing in the big three before, also I believe, or I believe he was playing in the big three. So
I don't know if he did or not, but
yeah, I was talking to a friend and they said something about they weren't sure if he'd be able to be invited back to the big three because of all of this controversy. He's created a platform for himself. My only question is how will this work for him moving forward? Because there's on we live in the internet age at the end of the day,
right.
and it comes and goes. So you can have this hot streak, get 200,000 followers on your YouTube page of you slandering people, but then after like 2 or 3 weeks of that, it's gonna be like, okay, what's next? So
Right. I agree
I
with that. Yeah.
I'm hoping that him and his mama's cooking is like he there's maybe he's got platters. He's got these platters for now, and then he's gonna build a restaurant because he's giving out dishes. I will say that he's giving out dishes, and people are scared to take the plate. I will give him
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, no, people in the media, they're not really. I mean, besides Matt Barnes, who apparently not only Kwame said this, but other people, plays tough guy in front of the screen. You know, he's like the only one that's kind of like, hey, yeah, I'll fight you, blah blah blah. But everybody else, they're kind of like trying to be, I'm sorry, or if they're not sorry, they're trying to like avoid responding.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Gilbert Arenas saw him break someone's jaw before.
Well, here's
yeah,
the thing, right? So, like, the thing is that we don't know Kwame Brown as a person, right? So we can't
right,
judge him off of that. What we can say is that, in his career, he performed this way, he performed that way. And it's like we have our right to say that because that's what's put in front of us. However, when somebody's taken that for like 20 solid years and it's just like being put in his face, he has the right to come back and say as to whatever he's going to say. You know what I mean? Like you can't just everybody has their limit, and you can't just expect somebody just to take something for so long without saying it up. It's like it gets to a point where it's like, why are you even bringing my name up to prove your point? You know what I mean? I'm sure you can
right.
find
Right.
another example or somebody else, but it's like y'all just keep on saying my name. So it's like I'm gonna really, put y'all on blast because y'all keep on doing this. So I don't blame him. You know what I mean? This isn't like the first time it's happened, and it just so happened that it happened to be on them. But I mean, it is what it is. Maybe they, you can't expect things and not expect some type of repercussion. Like we talk our shit, but we do respect the fighters. You know what I mean? At least we try to, or I should say, the people we talk about, athletes in
Yeah,
particular.
I mean,
absolutely.
my bad, my bad. I cut you off, bro. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just gonna say I just totally agree with that. Where it's we respect you still have to have some respect, and it's to me I just think of it like this: if you go into your workspace, and while you're in your workspace, you're doing a great job. You may not be the best person. You may not be the best person at what you do in your field or whatever. But then someone goes around and says, "Oh, they're not this, that, and the third, and they're like still talking about your performance 20 years later. It's like, yo, it's like, fam, is there a personal issue? Like, to be honest with you, I think what Kwame Brown is doing, I think we'll start to see, we may end up seeing a lot more of this from other athletes. Like,
Good.
honestly, I'd be interested in seeing Smush Parker have some words also, because a lot of people had a lot of bad words about him for like years as well. So,
I think that I'm not opposed for athletes to responding to media members or people who do like podcasting and stuff like that, kind of like us. Um, because
respond
like,
to us.
yeah, respond to us. But like, I think that if we're bold enough, media members, et cetera, is bold enough to come out and say a comment that's not respectful or favorable, then we should also be able to, to receive the backlash. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And But here's the thing, though, about it. I feel like as media members, podcasters, radio personalities, they should say what's in their mind. And I feel like they should get off what they feel like on their chest. There's a way to be professional, but people shouldn't sugarcoat shit neither. Now, I'm not saying you should bash Kwame Brown for 20 years. No, absolutely not. I'm not saying that because that's wrong. But if the topic comes up and he happens to be in the topic of the conversation, then you could talk about, be real about his performance in the NBA. But to like bash him and drag him for 20 years, that's the fucked up thing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like Oscar De La Hoya. I don't think he's a great representation of boxing right now. But 10 years from now, when we're still doing this podcast, I'm not going to be stuck on that. There's some things that I was talking about when we first started the podcast that I'm not dragging all the way here. Like, I just feel like that there's sometimes we're like, all right, we got the point. When are you going to move on? So I don't think people should hold their tongue, but if you are going to say something, you should expect for that person to say something back. It is what it is. That's the nature of the game. It's kind of like that old cliche saying, if you can't handle the heat, then get out the kitchen type of shit.
Whatever you're willing to say on air, you should be able to, it should be yourself saying it, not you're saying it just for, granted, some things get certain amount of attention than other opinions, but you also have to have the belief system of, hey, I may run into this person in real life. And that's the biggest thing. And also, like you said, if you're still talking about something for 57 episodes, right? Like, I'm not a big fan of certain artists. And like, I may mention it from time to time, but it's not like I'm coming in here every week to bash the same artist, right? Because at that point, it becomes like, at that point, someone from the outside looks at it as a personal thing, right? And then it becomes like, okay, like even like with his beef with Stephen A. Smith, like, yo, you've literally been having my name in your mouth for pretty much since I've been in the league, and I didn't perform to what the expectations were. So at some point, it becomes more personal. It's like, do you have a grudge against me? And I think that's a thing that people have to understand. And when it's all said and done, when you have these opinions about athletes and if they're good or not, we always have to remember, we are judging athletes, whether they're horrible, right? They're at the highest level, right? Even someone like, people used to clown Eric Snow, for instance, right? He was at the highest level in the NBA. People said he wasn't that great. Some people would say he wasn't as great as what they thought he could be. But when he was at the collegiate level, he was like a dominating player. So like, and we all know he can go anywhere. These Kwame Brown could have gone to any other league that wasn't the NBA and probably been a force to be reckoned with, right? Yeah. So people have to also respect that. Like,
right.
We can say anything about any fighter, any basketball player, whoever. They could be a bust, but at the same time, they still, there's a separation, because we talked about this before we started recording. There's a separation in terms of capability from an athlete when they're at certain levels. College wrestler against Olympic wrestler, two different things. High school versus college, two different things. So when you're I don't want to just keep repeating myself. I don't want to repeat myself, but like, yeah, like I think at the end of the day, you just have to be mindful that these are people that play at the all-star level that more than likely the people that give that opinion cannot do. And you have to be mindful of that. Like, if you have an opinion, cool. But if you keep harping on something, that person's going to take it personally.